afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the Atelier with Alina Cho, and I'm going to ask you to applaud because it is now in its 10th year. Now, that's 10 years of compelling conversations that explore the intersection between fashion and art. My name is Heidi Holder, and I'm the Frederick P. and Sandra P. Rose Chair of Education, and I am thrilled to announce Alina Cho and today's guest, Thom Browne, which I see all of you addressing the part to welcome him, right? So Thom Browne is recognized for challenging and modernizing today's uniform. Questioning traditional proportion, Browne's design convey an American sensibility rooted in quality craftsmanship and, as you know, precise tailoring. As of January the 23rd, there's lots of accolades. I'm just going to name a few today. Browne is the chairman of the Council of Fashion Designers of America and has received many, many honors, notably the CFDA Menswear Designer of the Year Award and the Cooper Hewitt National Design Award. His designs are in museum collections around the world, including the Met's Costume Institute, MoMA, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. The Thom Browne brand started right here in New York City's East Village with 5 suits in a made-to-wear shop, is now offered in over 300 leading department stores and specialty boutiques across 40 countries around the world. So really powerhouse, as you all know. You can applaud if you feel, right? Alina Cho is an Emmy Award-winning contributor to CBS Sunday Morning and producer of Martha, the critically acclaimed Netflix documentary on Martha Stewart. Cho was a national correspondent for CNN, where she hosted the network specials Fashion, Backstage Pass, and Big Stars, Big Giving. She is a recipient of the Ellis Island Medal of Honor and the 223 recipient of the CFDA Media Award in honor of Eugenia Shepherd for her contributions to journalism and the fashion industry. We are incredibly grateful tonight to the Doris and Stanley Tannenbaum Foundation in memory of Doris Tannenbaum for making this series possible. Doris was a great friend of the Met, and we're extremely grateful that her daughter, Nikki Gale Conway, chose to sponsor this series in her memory. Now, without further ado, please join me to warmly welcome Thom and Alina to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Oh, my gosh, it's so great to see so many friends in the audience. Oh, my gosh, and I can see them all in the first 3 rows. It's so great. Good evening, and welcome to the 10th anniversary of the Atelier. I can't believe it's been 10 years. Thom said, why did it take you so long? I said, this is a very special night, so thank you all for being here tonight. This is a sold-out crowd, by the way, so thank you to everyone in the balcony as well. Thank you to everyone for buying tickets. Thom, as we started to think about who I might want to sit down with for my 10th anniversary.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. I remember, I might need my glasses later, I remember thinking to myself that I wanted it to be someone I've known for a long time, someone I consider a friend, and someone whose career I've followed for the better part of 20 years, and that was you. We landed on you. And as I look out into the audience, I know that there are people here tonight who were also at my very first talk 10 years ago, and you were one of them. I have a photographic memory. I remember exactly where you were sitting. You were sitting right over there, and I remember seeing you and thinking to myself, it's going to be all right. And as I sit here with you tonight, I feel the same way. So thank you. It feels like a full circle moment in that way, and I'm so honored you're with us. So let's get started, shall we?
Yeah.
How you feeling? You just got back from Milan yesterday.
I am strapped in for the hard-hitting questions.
Okay. Thom texted me a couple of weeks ago and he said, are you going to ask me tough questions? And I said, maybe. So I want to start with something, though, that's been in the zeitgeist. Really, if you've been on social media, there is no way that you have not seen the global phenomenon that is the Wicked press tour, right? We are talking about the film starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande that will be in theaters a week from today. And they have been serving up the looks in ... custom Thom Browne. So I know that you and Cynthia have been friends for a long time, and I know that you dressed both of them for the Olympics. But you're a busy man. Tell me, first of all, how did this project come together? And why, when you are so busy, did you make this a priority? And they look amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, these type of things, I think, really only work when they're real relationships. And like you say, Cynthia's been a friend for a long time, and Ariana's a new friend. But, you know, it's a mutual respect and mutual appreciation of both parties. They're both amazing entertainers. They are, you know, they're Cynthia and Ariana. And the project was, I think, I haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to see it. And
Oh, the film, yeah. No, I'm dying to see the film, yeah.
And for me, you know, they're just interesting to work with because I really respect them for what they do.
They also love fashion. That doesn't hurt,
They
right?
really do.
Yeah.
And they also really know what their sensibilities are, what their style is, and they do love clothes and they love fashion.
How involved are you in the nitty-gritty of it all?
Well, I make it in my atelier here
Yeah,
in New York,
yeah.
so I'm involved all the way through until it's sent out for them to wear.
Just to give you an idea, Cynthia's look alone involved 10,000 pieces of sequins. The embroidery alone took 3,800 hours, and 40 people were involved in the making of the dress. Ariana's dress, a little Dorothy, a little Glinda, right? 600,000 pieces of three-cut beads, more than 6,000 hours to make. And 50 people were involved in the making of this look. You know, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time. So I guess the question is, I do remember seeing Ariana posting it to her grid, all the looks, and tagging you. When she posts those photos on her Instagram to her 376 million followers, that's more than the U.S. population, by the way. Yeah, U.S. population's 345. I looked it up. What is the impact? I guess I'm curious to know from your standpoint. What do you think the impact is in the short term from a moment like that, and what is the longer term impact?
I don't really focus on that. I really focus on the project and really being able to work with people that I love working with. I do have, you know, people on my team that actually probably do think about that a lot more.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
No, actually, they do think about that a lot more.
They definitely do.
Yeah, but for me, it's really making sure that they love what it is and they appreciate the moment, and I make them feel as special as the moment warrants.
Well, they clearly loved the looks because it was all over social media. It was everywhere. Want to move on. I always like to start at the beginning because there are so many people in the audience here who I would venture to guess don't know your life story. There are a few who do. But I'm curious to know, and I do think childhood informs so many things. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that. You're a good old boy from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Irish Italian family, fourth of 7 siblings. Yep. You told me one time your mom seemed to always be pregnant.
No, I didn't say that. Somebody said that, and she didn't appreciate it.
Okay, all right, okay. I thought
because my mother was an attorney. And,
okay,
you know, so,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you said it, but okay. Catholic school, competitive swimmer, like a real one, like 6 hours a day of swimming. And you grew up watching your dad wear a gray suit, right?
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about your childhood and how that prepared you to be the person you are today.
I think, you know, my sister's here, so if I miss anything, you can ask my sister.
Okay, great.
For maybe the little more insight. But, you know, we had a really easy, very, you know, middle class, you know, suburban upbringing. You know, we went to, the two things my parents, that were really important to my parents. Here we are, yeah.
I love these photos.
Yeah, I did approve that one.
Yeah.
I hope I approved all of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
No, for us, it was important that we did well in school and that we had something outside of school that we at least tried our hardest at and were as good as we could be at it. And that was the reason why sports were important and then school was important.
Well, and I know that you have said that your parents both said, do whatever you want, just excel, try to be the best that you can be, right?
Yeah, it was important that we worked hard and we tried to be as good as we could at whatever we were going to do.
You, it might be the swimmer in you, the competitive swimmer in you, but some of you know this, but Thom loves a routine. You really love a routine. Oh, there you are. As this.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, there you go.
I've never seen that photo before. I love it.
Yeah.
You love a routine. You don't swim. You traded swimming for running.
Well, I started running during swimming because, just off seasons, to have something outside of swimming to do.
But true or false, you run 8 miles a day.
I am, true to my routines. I like, a routine. I like a schedule, and
you run 8 miles a day.
I run every day, yes.
I mean, it's serious. You like the same breakfast every day?
Yeah.
A croissant and a coffee. And you love a glass or two of champagne at 6 o'clock.
A glass or two, yeah.
A glass or two.
Yeah.
Not a bottle, not a bottle. Just out of curiosity, what do you wear when you run?
Running clothes.
What?
Running clothes.
No, but Thom Browne running clothes?
Actually, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not running. I don't make running shoes, so.
So what kind of shoes do you wear?
Nike or Hoka or.
Oh, I love Hoka. Yeah.
Or what's Roger Federer's sneaker?
I don't know.
OC.
Oh, yeah.
On,
but to be clear, you wear Thom Browne when you're running too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want the visual. That's all.
How come we don't have an image of that?
Yeah. We need to work on that. Want to talk a little bit about your early years before you got into fashion. You graduated from Notre Dame with an economics degree. You got a consulting job in New York. Hated it, right?
Hated it, yeah.
Yeah. And then you moved to LA.
Yeah.
And you tried your hand at acting. You're so cute here. Was that college? Yeah. So adorable. I'm
blushing.
Well, I used to have a,
Okay,
anyway.
we won't go
Okay, we won't go there. For those of you who don't know, the reason why Thom has an H in his first name is because you tried to get a SAG card, right? And Thom Browne, T-O-M, was already taken. And so then you had to go T-H-O-M. But you tried your hand at acting. How did that go?
Well, I'm now a designer, so not very well.
Do you remember what your biggest role was?
I didn't have any roles. I did try, and I guess it wasn't good because I didn't really get anything. And
I understand there was a Motrin commercial.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then maybe a low point was that you auditioned for a Hot Pockets commercial. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear on that. What I find interesting about that period in Los Angeles, though, is that thank God that the acting failed, because now we have you as this extraordinary designer. But when you were in Los Angeles, that's sort of when you started shopping at vintage stores and buying suits and playing with proportions, right? Everybody in LA was wearing T-shirts and jeans, and you were going the other way. So what was it? What were you doing at that point?
Well, it's the reason why I started my own collection. I just wanted something for myself, and I didn't have money to really buy clothes at a store, so I went to vintage shops. And I was, my good friend Johnson was also starting his collection Libertine, which focused on basically just taking vintage clothing and reappropriating them into, different things.
And you would go to like a dry cleaner or whatever and have the tailor, And basically, those were the early versions of your now iconic suit, right?
Yeah, I was wearing
Yeah.
them in like the 90s in LA. And that was the thing. It was like, I just didn't fit in LA.
Which brings us to New York. So you moved back to New York. You sold your Volvo station wagon.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Volvo, but yeah.
I thought it was Volvo. Okay. You moved back to New York in 1997, and by all accounts, you didn't have any money, right?
I had no money.
Yeah.
No, I had to sell my car in order to pay the way back to New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, eventually you got a job at Giorgio Armani, right? Is it right that you started as a receptionist?
It's a receptionist, and then went into the wholesale department.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I literally sat in the wholesale department with very seasoned salespeople at Giorgio Armani. They were amazing. It was an amazing group of people, and I literally did not know how to email anybody. No, because at the time in LA was the time that, I don't know, I just didn't know how to email.
So,
It sounds pretty pathetic.
but from there, that was really your first official job in fashion, right?
Yeah.
And then sometime later, you met Ralph Lauren,
Yep.
and you worked your way up to creative director of Club Monaco, which at the time was owned by Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
And I know you consider Ralph an early mentor of yours.
Yeah.
What did
He's a mentor, I think, to all of us.
he is, but to you in particular, I mean, he taught you an important lesson about how to have staying power as a brand, right? And what was that?
Well, really to mean something and to have an identifiable thing, style, or something that people will identify you with when you mention the name. Mm-hmm. And that's...
To create a signature look,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, because haven't you said that the clothes you were making for Club Monaco, they didn't sell, right?
No, we couldn't. I mean, I was trying to do this for Club Monaco because it's really what I love doing, and it just wasn't right for them, and we couldn't give this
So
away.
I find this really interesting because you couldn't give away the clothes that you were making for Club Monaco, and yet you decided, why don't I slap my name on the label? You were totally unknown at this point, and start my own brand with 5 suits. I love this photo of you two. And I'm curious to know if the clothes you were making, which were essentially early versions of the suit, weren't selling. Why did you decide that putting your name on the label and starting your own brand was a good idea, with all due respect?
Yeah, no, but it was totally different because I did really approach it. I worked with one of the best tailors, I think, in the world, and created that proportion at the highest level. And I loved it. I loved it myself. And I didn't really think about it other than, I wanted it myself. And I thought that's why I was so committed to really just living it, 7 hours a day, 24 hours, 7
days a
7
week, 24 hours a day. The reception wasn't really great on the street in the beginning, right?
No, I mean, no, it wasn't. It took really 5 years for really people to really start looking at it and thinking that it was something.
How do people react today when they see you on the street? Because some people, they obviously by now, many of them know it's Thom Browne, but some of them might not know it's you, right? That's true, isn't it? Sometimes you'll get approached and people...
No, it's still very new to people, and
Really?
it still throws people off. It still is somewhat polarizing in that, a lot of people don't like it, and which I think is good because I wanted to do something that was just not, middle of the road, that was just like people either just liked it. I wanted them to either really love it or hate it.
When I profiled you for CBS Sunday Morning, I remember speaking to Vanessa Friedman, who's the chief fashion critic at the New York Times, and I asked her what sets you apart from the rest, and she said your originality. And basically what she said was, most of the time you go to a fashion show, you see a skirt, and you say, nice skirt. With Thom, you'll go to his show, and either you will love it or you will hate it, but you will remember it. Yeah. And that really is very high praise for you, right? The love or hate. You just don't want somebody to like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you finish a show and you almost get too many good reviews, then you kind of wonder, okay, did I push it far enough?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you read reviews? You read them.
I know what people are saying.
You know what's out there.
Yeah.
2005, a man named David Bowie walked into your store and changed your life.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that? What happened? How did that happen, and what happened when you met him? First of all, you must have been so nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I was in my small shop on Little West 12th Street, and Mickey Higasa called me and said that David Bowie's going to come down and he wants some clothing. And I said, okay. And it was the moment that made me think, like, okay, I think I'm doing something right. Because it was still before, it was really starting to be anywhere.
Well, you weren't in any retailers at that point, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think very quickly after this, or right before it, I was actually in Bergdorf's and Colette.
But I think what was so great about the David Bowie moment was, didn't you ask him, how do you want to wear the... Yeah, you tell the story.
Well, that's the reason why I thought, like, okay, if someone as iconic as David Bowie, and if you've seen his most recent documentary, it's incredible. And I was just really nervous, so I didn't know how to really even talk to him. And then Iman was there too, so it was like, between the two of them.
Doubly nervous, yeah.
And I said, so how do you want me to finish your trousers? And he said, I want them exactly like you. And that was the moment I thought,
Uh-oh. We've got a microphone problem.
okay, that was the moment then I thought I was doing something right.
Can we, someone in audio, can we get a microphone for Thom? Wonderful. Ask and you shall receive. Thank you so much. You mentioned that it took at least 3, if not 5 years for the first stores to even entertain the idea of carrying your clothes. And even when they did, I know that they all tried to sort of water it down, right?
Well, because at the beginning it was really hard to sell because people didn't know who I was. They didn't know the name. They didn't know, they didn't understand the proportion. And, it was just like, subtly suggested that, oh, Thom, can you make it maybe a little bit more affordable or maybe make it so that it could fit maybe a couple people? And I just knew that if I started watering it down or started compromising that early, that we wouldn't be sitting here now.
Good point. Along those lines, as you know, it was just announced this week that Peter Do is leaving Helmut Lang after just 2 runway shows. Of course, there are all kinds of rumors that there's going to be more musical chairs in Europe, and it seems to be that we're constantly reading about fashion designers' musical chairs, and I'm just curious to know, truly, from your standpoint, if it took 3 or 5 years for the first retailers to even entertain the idea of carrying Thom Browne, do you think fashion houses are giving designers enough of a chance? I know you don't want to speak to specifics. No. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, we'll elaborate.
No, I feel like sometimes the way that designers are treated by these big companies is really challenging. And I don't think they give enough time for somebody to create their own version of wherever they are. That's why I think it's a luxury for me to just be on my own, because I can do exactly what I want. Mm-hmm. Of course, with Zania, I have to be, somewhat respectful to make sure that there's some type of business. But I feel like it's a shame on how designers are treated.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
I don't know why it is that that's going on right now. I don't know if social media or I don't know what it is, but all I know is that you're reading about a designer leaving a house every 6 months. Yeah. And it just doesn't seem like they're given enough time to your point, develop their own signature, so to speak. Speaking of signatures, I've interviewed you so many times over the years, but I didn't realize that when employees start, well, I knew this part, the first part. When employees start working at Thom Browne, they are issued what's called a starter uniform, correct?
Yes?
And there is also an 11-page manual that goes along with it. Top buttons undone, shirts not to be ironed, navy only on Fridays and only on top, sneakers only on the weekends, but what I'm told is only one kind of sneaker. Don't even try to wear pink socks to the office because that happened once and that did not go over well. But why? Why, Thom? Why so many rules? Why?
No, look, I think it's really important that we represent a very focused image to people, because I do feel like the best designers in the world, you know and recognize what they've done and their legacy, because you have a clear image of who they are, what they've created, the second you hear their name. And for me, when I started, that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to do something that, that transcended fashion, that really meant something. I mean, the last thing I think people needed was another designer. And for me, I wanted to create an image in people's minds, and that's the reason why we all have to represent it in a very clear way, so that people don't it doesn't muddy the image.
Well, I mean, I think many of you in the room know this, but I think it's worth mentioning again that it has been said many times that no one designer has revolutionized menswear and changed the way that people dress in the same way that you have. So you clearly have done something right, and
But more importantly, it's not just the clothes. It's also, I wanted to do something that was more interesting than just purely the clothing piece of fashion, and that it transcended fashion and became almost, like, I do feel like when we're all together, it almost looks like a piece of living art. Mm-hmm. And you don't really see the clothes, you see the whole idea of it together, and I think that's what's really interesting.
Well, I think part of what helps bring that story to life are your fashion shows, right? So I know that this is a very important part of what you do. Some of you in the room have been lucky enough to attend Thom's fashion shows. I've been to many. They are extraordinary. It is like walking onto a movie set. It is like performance art, from the sets to the soundtrack, and to the models who walk very slowly, because I know you want people to enjoy the experience and see the clothes, right? Yes. They're so wild when you walk in. They're so sometimes crazy. Where did the ideas start, and how do you execute them?
Well, every show is different. Sometimes the clothing comes first, and then I design the story into the clothing, or the story comes first, and then I design the collection. Did I say the same thing?
No.
Okay,
no.
Yeah, okay.
No, you didn't.
For me, the show and the collection is where every season starts, and the idea of putting the collection in front of people in the context of some type of story that is provocative, interesting, that's beautiful, that's just the reason why that they're sitting there for 30 minutes. And they're not slow, they're just intentional in regards to making sure that people actually, especially in the world that's everything is so fast-paced, that you do actually sit and you do sometimes challenge people to slow down and look at what is in front of you. And selfishly, because there's so much work that goes into all of it, that I want people to sit and really, see it all.
You do at least 8 collections a year. There are only 12 months in a year. Does it make it harder or easier that you're essentially iterating on that single idea of the classic, iconic Thom Browne gray suit?
Well, that's the reason why the shows are so important. Because I do want that gray suit to be interesting every couple months. And yeah, I mean, the shows they all start from that very classic tailored point of view, but go off in tangents that I hope people, are entertained by, or, like I say, either like think they're ridiculous or think they're great.
You've done haute couture twice now, in Paris, which is made to measure, but in the highest form. And you've shown both in Paris and New York. And I know you love both cities, but I'm curious to know whether you've decided whether you'll do couture again, and whether you've decided when and where your next show will be.
Well, I'm definitely here in February.
Oh, you're in
New
New York
in February.
Okay.
And in regards to doing couture or even my ready-to-wear collections, I do feel like even in my ready-to-wear collections, there's a very similar level that
Craftsmanship.
craftsmanship and
Definitely.
the approach to concept. So I don't, we'll see what happens.
I want to talk a little bit about, the road hasn't been smooth sailing all the way through, right? 2008, of course, was the financial crisis, and I didn't realize this. I don't know why I didn't know this before, but in 2009, you were days away from shutting the doors. I mean,
Yeah.
you had just days left of money, right? And in fact, you were advised to declare bankruptcy, but you didn't. How did you get yourself out of that situation, and what do you think you learned from that? What?
No, I mean, yeah.
Well, you got on a plane to Japan,
Yeah,
right?
I was days away. I was, days away from having to sit in front of my 6 employees and tell them that, we were going to have to close down. And yeah, there were most business people said to just declare bankruptcy, start over, and that's a typical businessman's approach to doing something creative. They had no idea that I could not do this over. All the emotion and all the time that went into creating however many collections up until 2008 or 2009.
The blood, sweat, and tears.
I just couldn't do that again. And then on top of that, all the collections then going away to someplace. And yeah, I got on a plane. I wanted to beg, borrow, and steal to just keep it going. Mm-hmm. And I was on a plane to Japan, and I got some funding to just keep me going. And it just proves that and is what I say to every, any designer that's wanting to go out on his own and start his own collection, you better want to do this more than anything else in the world, because no one's really going to be there. You have to make it happen for yourself.
100%.
And that's what I learned, and I kind of knew that, but I had to live it, mm-hmm. and I lived it, and also too, there was the idea of having to give a little bit of it away too, in order to survive. But for me, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. The idea of just keeping it going, that's all I cared about.
Well, it was clearly a good choice. 9 years later, you sold a majority stake of your company to the Zegna Group for an estimated, wait for it, $500 million. And I only say the number because, well, first of all, that must have been a really good day.
Didn't stink.
What's that?
Didn't stink.
But really, what an incredible validation of your work, right? I mean, when the Zegna Group, when Gildo Zegna approached you, what were your thoughts, and how did that change your business?
I was really fortunate, even with my partner from Japan, and then the partners I had between Japan and Gildo. So I had really supportive partners in regards to really just keep doing what I was doing, and it just kept working. Mm-hmm. And then Gildo came, and yeah, I mean. But I also wanted to make sure that it was with a group that the quality of what they do is better than anyone else's. And there was a really good relationship. Mm-hmm. It was more than just a business relationship. It's a family. So it's a very honorable Italian family.
For the record, I knew you when you didn't have any money, just so we're clear. And you're still the same person that you are all these years later. I think Heidi mentioned in the introduction that you're currently stocked in roughly 300 department and specialty stores worldwide. You have 107 retail stores and shop-in-shops, and you're about to open 2 more stores, right? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, one uptown.
Madison Avenue, and 72nd Street, right? Talk about the 2 stores, because I think these locations are exciting to me.
Well, for me, I love the store in Tribeca, and it's been there since 2006. So that is always going to be very special to me. But also, I run into a lot of people uptown that I would like to be able to be up here as well. So 72nd and Madison is going to be great.
And the goal is March of next year?
March of next year.
March of next year.
And then the other one is out in LA on Melrose Place. So.
I love that you're going to be on Melrose Place. That's amazing.
Yep.
It's really, really exciting. Women's wear. You launched women's wear in 2011. In 2013, you dressed Michelle Obama for the inauguration. I was at CNN at the time, and I was lucky enough to be the first person to interview you. I remember being in the newsroom and realizing that she was wearing Thom Browne, and I got Mickey Higasa, who was handling your PR at the time, on the phone, and apparently you were on the treadmill or something in Paris.
Yeah.
Take me back to that moment, because people should know, you never know until they walk out what they're going to be wearing, right? So talk about that. How did you find out, and talk about that moment.
Because I didn't know, so I was just doing what I do. And I finished, and then I got back, and Mickey said, "Where were you?" And I said I was running. And
running.
And so then we had our talk.
Yes, we did. I was in New York. I did the interview remotely, and I didn't know until recently that you didn't particularly like the way you looked in the interview or something? You were opening champagne or something?
Yeah, wasn't the most flattering.
He didn't like the way he was crouched over, to be clear, but I think he looked great. I think he looked great. We took a flattering portion of that interview. Thom, can we talk about just what that moment did, though? Because I think I actually remember at the time being on with Anderson Cooper, and he was saying, this is a man who's known for his menswear. People don't even know that he makes women's wear. And so I'm curious to know, with that one moment, what did that do for your business?
It didn't directly affect the business, but it did directly tell people that I actually designed women's clothing. But it was more the sensibility of how I wanted to address women's clothes. And for me, I grew up with, my mother, who was the strongest woman, that she was just so strong. And then my sisters, too, who were really strong. And so I wanted to really create women's clothes that made women look like really beautiful and strong.
And do I remember this correctly? Was the dress and coat made from fabric that...
It was actually fabric that I was developing for my men's collection, and
men's ties, right?
Developed in a tie.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Another big moment that you have every year is the Met Gala. Of course, we're here in this wonderful museum, and it's so clear, as we saw in those photos, how much you love putting on a show. And I know you see the Met Gala really as like another opportunity to present a story, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the story behind Cardi B's dress in 2019. When I interviewed her in Paris, she said it was a little heavy, but it made her feel very confident. And then she recently was quoted as saying, "When I felt the dress, I felt like, I'm killing you bitches. I ain't going to lie to you. That's how I felt." Can we talk about this dress, your idea for it, and working with Cardi? Because I know you have great admiration and respect for her.
Yeah. First off, the Met is important for me because and I spend so much time, it's important for me because it celebrates Andrew's work.
That's right.
Andrew, I do feel like, for everyone in the room, I feel like he is the most important person in fashion. I think. He does. I mean, he's elevated fashion to levels of being worthy of being here in the Met.
Well, and for those of you who don't know, the Met Gala really serves as the opening of the big spring Costume Institute exhibition, which of course Andrew curates so beautifully every year, and it's a big night. It's the Super Bowl of fashion. It's the party of the year.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, and this year, 2025, will focus on menswear for the very first time.
Yeah.
I mean, that must make you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the 2025. Have you already started thinking about 2025 and who you'll be dressing and sort of how those looks might come together? Because I know you like to tell a story, and well, Trevor Noah, Adrian Brody. I mean, look at this Gigi Hadid's dress. Do y'all remember that? I mean, what a moment! What a moment that was.
That was a good dress.
Yeah, that was a great dress. What do you think? That's another opportunity for you, really, to just.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a huge stage.
It's a really nice moment too, because I mean, I love creating moments, and it's a really nice way to celebrate the opening of Andrew's shows, and then also to really play. I mean, because it is, I think, one of the very few times of the year that you get to create moments for people. And you know, of course, Gigi's dress is amazing, but I feel like everybody is approached in a way that I want to make sure that they all have a very singular moment.
And everybody wants to know, what's it like inside the party?
Oh, it's so much fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
That's great to hear, because I know you and Andrew don't like to go out that much, so you know it's a fun night. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something. I'm of Korean descent, and I want to talk about something that I know has helped tremendously in terms of growing your business, and that's K-pop stars. My mother says that she cannot turn on Korean television without seeing celebrities wearing Thom Browne, and your team told me that all happened organically. You know, a lot of times brands pay these celebrities, and they just found you. So what do you think happened? Why do you think it took off in the way that it did? And how did that help your brand in terms of awareness globally and growth?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how it happened initially in Korea, but they were very supportive. And yeah, I mean, it's affected, you know, just because they are so global right now that, you know, a lot of people do see it.
And a lot of these, you know, brand ambassadors these days are the Korean pop stars, right?
Yeah.
So another big moment that you had was with LeBron James.
Yeah.
2018, when you dressed LeBron and the entire Cleveland Cavaliers lineup for their, I know, isn't that amazing? For their runway walk to the court, right? How did that all come together, and what was that like working with LeBron? Because I know he's a friend of yours.
Yeah, just like any of those moments that I feel work really well, it did happen very easily through a conversation with Dwayne Wade and LeBron. And, you know, it turned into something very different than I really had intended, because the initial conversation was really just to create a cultural moment for the kids that are seeing them walking into their games, because they all...
Why was that important to you?
I guess it comes down to for me, the importance of a uniform, and how it really promotes confidence and real style, I think, too. But the idea for them to all represent the team in a very unified way for kids, I thought was important to show that they all could wear anything they wanted. They could afford anything they wanted. But the idea that they're representing themselves all in the same way, I thought was so much more important for them to see.
Is it true that LeBron bought all the suits for everybody? He did, right?
I think, I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he did. By the way, when we first met 20 plus years ago, you still wore pants, but you...
I thought these were the hard-hitting questions. Yeah.
But you don't anymore. I mean, even in the dead of winter, it's just shorts, right?
Yes.
What did that happen? Is this true that you were turned away at a restaurant in Europe or something? Like, what's the story behind that? Because all of a sudden one day you weren't wearing pants anymore, you were just wearing shorts, and then I realized you never wore pants again. What happened? It's a legitimate question, you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm still turned away in Europe from some places.
Are you really?
Yeah, I mean, but
it was
it is what
important.
it is.
Well,
It was for me. I didn't understand the big deal, but I totally respect the rules that certain places have. No, for me, I don't know. I just am more comfortable in shorts.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Want to talk about the CFDA. You have been chairman of the CFDA since January 2023. I remember when you took the job, and I mean this sincerely, at the time many young designers texted me, called me, and told me in person that they were so thrilled because they felt like you were a really approachable leader. They felt like if they emailed you or called you that you would answer, that you would give them advice, which I know you have been very, very, you've been a mentor to many designers. What has that job been like? Because I know you take it very seriously, and I know it's a lot of work.
Well, I think it comes down to your question about how I feel about designers that are designing for other places and how they're treated. I've been given so much from the industry, especially here in New York, so I wanted to give back, and this was, I thought, a good way of giving back. And for me, yeah, I mean, I have been through it, and I can lead, I guess, and mentor through that experience. And, you know, I think it's important that they all, and I'm speaking about more like, you know, new designers and just, well, actually not always so new, but everybody realizing like we all live almost parallel lives. We all live through the same things. We all have a moment that, you know, sometimes it seems like it may not work out. Mm-hmm. But I think the most important thing that I wanted to just prove was that if you really, really love it more than anybody else, it will work. But also you have to try to create beautiful things that are more than just clothes.
You have to create a signature. You have to create something.
Really create something that really makes people want you to stay around.
And think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about a crowd pleaser, Hector Brown Bolton. Hecky.
Hector, yeah.
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 This love, I mean, one of the loves of your life. Yeah. Some people in the room don't know that you create, yeah, he's so cute.
Now that's a good image.
Yeah. Some people don't know that you created, I mean, I think many people in the room know this, but some people don't know that you created a Hector handbag in 2016, really as a joke, right? I mean, sort of something silly, like a fun novelty, right? And then, didn't it take off?
Yeah, it's those type of things that do work, when you actually don't think about them, and you just do something for the pure idea of it just being fun and interesting, and it's a great bag.
It is a great bag. Yeah. I've got a small one backstage. True or false? You, as I mentioned, I met Thom when he didn't have any money, and now you have a beautiful home on Sutton Place, and you recently bought, within the past year, about a year ago, a beautiful country home. But what I love about this is that you were particularly taken by the architecture, I know. And I remember when you told me, you said, George Washington dined there, and Martha Washington slept there, but it's this unbelievable home. You said at the time, you told me it was a true Georgian house, and I nodded, but I didn't know what you were talking about. But explain to me, what was it about this home? Because what an incredible historic home that you're going to bring back to life, right?
Yeah, I mean, the architecture it's a really special house that was built by one of the Livingston families here in New York, and it was built in the 18th century, and it's just a perfect house. I mean, it's simple, but, you know, it's just the architecture is, and it's similar to the house here in New York. It's just a really good, simple.
I think it was
Beautiful
built in
house.
1774. That last shot that we showed was the room where Martha Washington actually slept, is what I'm told. True or false, you partially bought the home because Hector's not a good traveler and you needed a home to spend closer to home versus Europe. Is true? Is that fair?
Yeah, it'll be nice to
Yeah,
have.
yeah. Some of you don't know. Some of you might not know this, but Thom has a very busy night. Right after this, you're going to be heading downtown for the premiere of your documentary called "The Man Who Tailors Dreams." That's at 9 p.m. tonight. It's premiering opening night, Doc NYC, which, by the way, is the largest documentary film festival in North America. So congratulations. Rainer Holzheimer was the director. He also did the films on Dries Van Noten and Margiela and the great photographer William Eggleston. Tell me how this project came together.
Reiner approached me, and I really never thought or was interested in doing a documentary, and I thought it was interesting because of the other ones that he had done. So, yeah, so it's done.
How did it feel to be under the microscope, so to speak?
Well, anybody that knows me knows that I just want the work to be what people see. So, sometimes seeing yourself and, hearing your voice and, yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, just that. The one thing about it is the work I'm very proud of the work.
Yeah.
And I do, sometimes just being reminded of what we've done over the last 20 years, I think is nice to see and be reminded. Because, we all just go on to the next collection after that and to the next. And to see it he's an amazing director, and he tells this story really well. And it's his version of the story, which is nice to get an outsider's view on what you do.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see it. You hate lightning rounds, I know.
Oh no, yeah.
Thom hates lightning rounds. We're going to make this as painless as possible for you.
Okay.
But I think these are interesting questions. Bow tie or necktie?
Necktie.
Necktie. Pinstripes or plaid?
I mean, I could say both of these, but
Personal preference.
I like both.
All right. Renaissance art or modern art?
Both. Well, yeah, I like both. I mean,
For the love of God.
I know. I hate these.
New York or Paris?
New York.
I'm going to say Paris. I love New York. I live here. I love New York, but I love Paris.
Well, I do too.
True or false? In Japan, people there were surprised that you smile.
Oh, it is a funny story, because the first time I went there, because I guess in all the images that people had seen prior to being there, I wasn't smiling, so they were surprised that I smiled.
True or false? You sometimes five-finger discount glasses from the Ritz, Paris.
Yes.
All right. The torture is over. The torture is over. You just celebrated 20 years in business last year. Next year, you'll be turning 60 in September. And I only say this because when you reach these milestones, I think usually it's a time for reflection. And I'm curious to know, as you look back on the last 20 years, what are your thoughts on what you've built? And what would you like the next 20 years to look like?
Well, the thing that I'm most happy about is my life with Andrew. And, the business, yeah, I want to make sure that it grows in the best way, in the biggest way, without compromising and sacrificing what people have seen in the first 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And what do you want the next 20 to look like?
I want it to feel the same and look the same, and hopefully bigger. But I want my life to just be as quiet as it is now, and
Yes, I know.
sound so boring.
No,
Sarah.
no. We know how much you and Andrew like to stay in and order in food and watch bad TV, and that's okay. I like to do that too. Before we go, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you, Thom, for your support over the years. I'm not sure many of you know this, but last year I was lucky enough to receive the CFDA Media Award, which is really the highest award for a journalist working in fashion. It was the honor of a lifetime. And of course the board had to vote, but it was you who nominated me, and so I definitely would not have been up on that stage without your support. So I know I've thanked you.
You would have.
Well, thank you. I mean, I know I've thanked you many times privately, but I wanted to thank you publicly for that because it's so meaningful to me. You know, I've covered fashion for many years, and mostly within the framework of a general news network like a CNN or a CBS, and it's not always easy to get fashion stories on the air, and it also isn't easy to get the respect of the industry. And I think in that one move, and I'm not gonna start crying, but like, it's so emotional for me because in that one move, I felt like that I belonged and I was part of the industry. So I thank you so much for that. I will never forget that.
Well, it's because of your appreciation and the intelligence you bring to it. So
well,
that's
thank
the
you.
reason why.
Thank you so much. Anyway, with that, I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight. I want to give special thanks to Max Holine, the CEO and director of the Met, who's here tonight in the front row. I want to thank Max. Max, I thanked. I want to thank Andrew Bolton as well and the entire Costume Institute team for your support over the years. I definitely would not be sitting here tonight without your support. So Andrew, thank you. And I want to thank all of you for my friends and everybody else who has come out many times over the years. It means so much to me. And I hope you'll come to the next one. We're working on it. That's all I can say. And maybe 2025, maybe spring 2025. That's all I can say. But thank you, Thom.
Thank you so much.
It was such an honor to have you here for this special night. Thank you, everybody.